My name's Glenn Gordon, and I'll give you a little bit more, but I just really thank you guys. I bring water with me. This topic is always a little bit emotional for me. I'm, person in recovery, and so even as much as I do this, I still find it pretty emotional. And this I'm just, the depth of your understanding and empathy in creating this film is just amazing and blows me away. And I think from what Silas had said about you, I'm sure you felt the same way. I'm absolutely blown away. So and thanks for inviting me to be here today. I watched it at home and like a lot of other people, I was moved to tears. I will introduce myself and tell you why I'm here today. And so my name is Glenn Gordon. I work for a state program called the Options Program, which is an acronym for overdose prevention through intensive outreach, naloxone, and safety. And I'm the options liaison for Oxford County. I travel throughout Oxford County, following up with people post-overdose and other people with substance use problems. Mainly my connection to people is through referrals from law enforcement agencies throughout Oxford County and emergency departments and sometimes community referrals. And so I am essentially a resource navigator, but I think the most important thing to understand and really thinking about this film and what it means, is there's a lot of resources. There's some shortage of resources. A lot of things I could say about resources, and I have some information out in the lobby that you're welcome to pick up when you leave here. But the most important resource is the people in the community. The most important resource, somebody's success in recovery can be bolstered certainly by counseling, by treatment, by detox, by medication. We can save their lives with Narcan and harm reduction strategies. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the most important thing to somebody's success is to be able to treat somebody with trust and respect, to be able to understand and really see them as they are, to see them as a person, which I think this film does an amazing job of really demonstrating. The number one factor in somebody's recovery, all these things are important, all these things are effective to some degree, but the number one factor is social capital. It's somebody's connection to other human beings that is going to determine whether they're successful in recovery or not. And it starts with empathy, it starts with compassion, it starts with understanding, And I'll tell you why this movie speaks to me so much. So I'm as I said, I'm in recovery, and I'm going to get personal here for a second. But so I started using substances pretty young, and I jumped right in. I wasn't like a waiter. I didn't dip my toe in and go, oh, let's try this. I like the way I approach swimming in Maine is like I start with a 20-yard run and dive headfirst in the water as quick as possible. Well, that was my approach with drugs and alcohol. So by the time I was 14, I was qualified for a lot of programs around here. I would have qualified for a lot of programs. I had a story by the time I was 14 years old that would qualify me to be in any treatment program, any 12-step program, or anything like that. And by 15 years old, I had a paper route that wasn't supporting my drug and alcohol habit, and I was breaking into houses. And when I watch this movie, I can envision myself in this house. I knew the people, they were on my paper route. They were real estate folks who were making a lot of money. And still I had this feeling of just this guilt and this dread I was gonna get caught, but I just couldn't stop myself. I was doing something I didn't even want to do. But I needed the money, and I'm pulling out drawers and I'm looking for money, and we're grabbing bottles of booze and all this time I'm shaking inside. I'm like sick to my stomach. I'm not like enjoying this. I'm not detached from it in any way, shape, or form. I'm hating every minute of it, and yet I can't stop myself. I cannot stop myself. Eventually I got into trouble, and I had to face the folks whose house I had broken into. They were planning to go away on vacation, and they had just gone out. They came back probably about 15 minutes after we had left their house to find this mess that I had created, and I had to live with that. And so, but that piece of it is that piece of, I knew that I was a good person inside. I felt like I was a good person inside, and yet I led this dual life, this life of where I'm thinking I'm a good person, I have good values. Just 2 years prior to that, I was going to church every Sunday since I was a kid. You know, at 12 years old, I had a dream of being a minister. You know, 2 years later, I'm breaking into houses, stealing money for drugs and alcohol. You know, that's how crazy this is, you know. And I just really appreciate the way you brought this. It just, you know, and again, you know, in my role as kind of a resource navigator, for the most important thing I do is try to hear, is try to listen, is try to let people have their voice, because I know that's inside of them. You know, trust and respect, that's really what we need to give the people, and love, empathy, that's really what we need to give the people if we want them to recover, if we want them to be successful. You know, we went through a time of like really like hardcore, tough love, intervention, blah, blah, blah. You know what? The science says that doesn't work. The science says that doesn't work. The science says love works. That's what the science says. If you don't believe me, you can look it up. The science is a lot different than it was 15 or 20 years ago. The science says empathy, compassion, love. You know, that's what works. And I just really appreciate what you brought out. All, you know, just so much maturity, so much depth of understanding. It was beautiful. Thank you so much. Sometimes we talk about decision making and willpower and all these kind of things in relation to substance use and alcohol. You know, and what we know about it is that there's things going on in the brain that once somebody crosses a certain threshold of use, that they are no longer in control, that the drugs are really running the show. And one of the things specifically about opiates that I think is really fascinating is that opiates do three things for people. So this is the relapse rate for alcohol and stimulants is like about 60% after like a 30-day program. Like within the first 30 days, 60% people relapse. For opiates, it's 90%. Like it's crazy high, and there's a reason for that, and it has to do with social connection. So opiates stimulate certain chemicals in your brain, one of them being dopamine, which is the reward thing. So it's that thing that tells us we're feeling good when we graduate from high school, when we get married, all this thing. So that makes us feel good. It naturally makes us feel good. And so that's one piece of it. Next piece is the other part that we typically associate opiates with is the pain killing part. It stimulates the production of endorphins and enkephalins, and so this takes away pain. So now we feel good. We've got our pain taken away. And so the third piece of it is stimulates a hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is at its highest natural level in the human body when a mother is bonding with a baby. So this is the hormone that literally is stimulated in you when you are falling in love. All right? So when you feel good, the first time you ever fell in love, if you can imagine that person you couldn't get out of your brain, how good that felt, how wonderful it felt, how obsessed you were with that person, okay? And now I'm gonna turn that up times 10 because I'm getting it artificially from a drug. This is the hook for opiates, and we're getting this physiologically, we're getting this intense feeling of no pain, reward, and love, social connection. And it's physiologically what's going on in our body. So you take that away, my pain is increased, I don't feel good about anything, and nobody loves me. That's the feeling of taking it away, plus the physical withdrawal symptoms that go along with quitting using opiates. And so now we've just come through a period of this, with COVID, of being isolated. And so we've been able to, people have been able to artificially simulate all that social connection with a drug. And we're still kind of coming through that, and we will be going through that here for probably a few more years while people are getting social connection. It's the biggest thing we can offer people, and there are programs. There's programs, Sacramento Valley Health Center, the program that I'm in, the Options program. We try and get people connected to resources to kind of help level the playing field. Maybe people need medication to help level the playing field, and people really need it. They need to get to a baseline place where they're comfortable, where they can start to reintegrate and get the other things in place to start to feel good and get their lives back on track. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that social connection is absolutely critical. That feeling of love, that feeling of empathy, and I really just can't say again enough how I appreciate how much this film really brought that.